and welcome. You're tuned into ZiFM Stereo, my station, your station. I'm your host, Tahle Dzinza, and in the studio today we have Zuva, an amazing jazz musician, also a medical student at the University of Zimbabwe. She'll be holding down the role of the woman, myself the role of Jackie on today's episode.
Chapter 2, How We Got This Far. Everything you experience today is the result of the choice you have made in the past. Jack Canfield.
Wow, tell me how this all began. What went wrong?
I think I know the day he exactly stopped loving me. A few days after we got married. It was over, I was devastated. The details are immaterial. The issue is, he says, he realized that the day he married me, that he had made the biggest blunder of his life.
I know you don't want to get into too much detail, but how long had you known this guy and how long were you married before all this began?
We went to the same church, dated for about 4 months, had known him for about 3 months before that.
Oh, that's like 7 months?
Yeah.
And the problem?
2 days after we married, that gave him a license to move on or start an affair, which to date is about 10 years old. I think it was probably there all the time. The woman is a harlot, and I say this respectfully. Someone I know, the city girl Blanky, told me that she didn't know he was married at first. She was sorry he was, but could not stop loving him. I've been through the road of trying to fight her. I have never really won. It's difficult to fight a prostitute when you are not one yourself. Any woman who agrees to have a relationship with a married man is much as a prostitute as he is. So I'm fighting with the Jezebel. The deal now is to deal with him. Meanwhile, I am brutally compared to his mistress, not only by him, but his family too. How do you like that? I was already 6 months pregnant with my first child, and suddenly it hit me that I was dealing with a chronic woman abuser who obviously had serious psychological problems with me. At that point, I mentally knew that there was nothing I could do to change him, but emotionally, I didn't believe that. You know what? You cannot force someone to love you. It's either they do or they don't. He was flaunting his adulterous affair in my face. He carried her pictures in his wallet. He brought gifts from her into our home. So I packed his bags, called his folks, and that was that. He left kicking me and hitting me. I remember he boxed my unborn baby and said a lot of unhelpful things before I closed the door on him. I was glad he was out of my life, funny enough. So were his parents. It was just the baby and me. I never pined him for him. I was angry, felt betrayed, and determined to create the best life for my baby and me. Life carried on. I had an aversion to men, just focused on what I needed to achieve. Beyond this, you can trace what happened. I remain anonymous because my children bear the name of this guy. They deserve the right not to live in the limelight of having an abusive father. So I hope you can respect that.
So how come he came back into your life?
Fortunate for me, his brother's wife died. He realized that life was too short and that he had done me wrong. So I gave it another bash.
Was he different?
Significantly. I think for 2 months he was amazing. Her death really shook him. It was funny how he got used to having sex with me again. He was back to his aggressive self.
So why didn't you leave then?
I'm from a broken family. I know the agony that kids go through when they are not in a stable family. So I vowed to stick in for my kids so I would not pass a spiritual inheritance of divorce and separation. He knew that, of course. Occasionally, he would throw it to my face. Children from broken families always end up in the same shoes. So I was in a state of trying to undo the past for the sake of my baby. I remember begging him not to divorce me. Pathetic, isn't it? Then there were times where I was in such an emotional jigsaw puzzle. I wanted him dead. I wanted him there. I didn't know what I wanted. The bottom line was I knew he was a chronic abuser, sexually, emotionally, financially, physically. and deserved life in imprisonment. He is like Idi Amin, very cold, calculating, sadistic.
So when did you realize you were living with a brute? Why didn't you ditch the bugger?
I couldn't. You see, it was against my principles, whatever that meant then. I still had a romance of how families should be. I wanted to have that for my daughter.
So why did you think, given his obnoxious behavior, that a man like him would ever be too good for your daughter or you?
I believe in prayer and counseling. I lived on a systemic therapy daily for 3 consecutive months, just to help me cope with the mental and emotional trauma.
But why put up with this? Did he come with you to the sessions?
Yes, he would start lying in the sessions. There was one session where he brutally accused me of having an affair. It was 3 months after my dad had died. He actually said I had lied to him, that I had gone to the memorial. He told the counselor that he had followed me and I wasn't there. By the end of the session, I was ready to put cyanide in his supper.
Why didn't you?
There was none at the pharmacy.
I didn't feel answered. Why put up with this?
I guess my self-esteem at a point was very low. So Aunt could not possibly sneak under it. Now when you're in a state, you just keep falling. You just keep falling. I realize now no counseling can help us. He is a basket case.
So what then? Are you not in the same basket?
I am trying to find out a way to leave him that will not hurt the kids.
Is there such a way?
I am trying to find it.
What are some thoughts you have about this?
Well, I now have 2 kids, above 6 and below 12. My son loves his dad. My daughter wants to be loved by him. She's scared of him. She reaches out to him. He is 60% of the time rubbing her confidence in the dirt. 30% he does that with my son too. But 10% he is good to him. Sorry, I'm not answering your question, come to think of it. I don't know why I still believe my kids need a dad like him. Guess I'm hoping that he will be a nice adulterer. You know who loves his kids, dotes on them, believes in them, and then keeps the skeletons in the closet. That is what many couples I know do.
But he isn't any of that. Is that an option for you? Would you be happy if he did that? Have his mistress, so long as he takes good care of his kids?
I'm afraid of the emotional battles that I will face with my kids after I boot him out. I know he is manipulative. I don't want my kids being in a step environment with the whore as a stepmom. I think they should be spared the aggressive politics because I know he will use them, just as he does now.
What happened with your parents?
My dad was a really good man, but he was too much money, but he made too much money and made very bad friends. He was a serious womanizer, and then violence became an everyday thing.
How did you cope?
I simply blocked out the fact that my mom was gone. We stayed with my dad. We wrote to each other, but you know what? Emotionally, I was massacred. I did a lot of clubbing in my teens out of anger against my dad. I don't want my kids to go through the same thing. I would look for money, work part-time whilst in school to save money to go and see my mom. Mom lived 900 miles from us.
So are you saying keeping your kids in this abusive setup will help them turn out better?
Well, when you say that, I feel very stupid.
Maybe I'll ask you differently. Is it better for your kids to grow up with no dad at all, or to have him around rubbing their confidence in the dirt half the time? Do you think his presence is creating a right home environment for your kids?
Sometimes.
When is it sometimes? We are all not perfect, but it does sound to me like he's making negative input into your kids half the time.
Well, he buys some ice cream and pizza once in a while.
Does that undo the hurt in your kid's heart? Is everything normal once he buys them goodies? Do you think his presence is creating a right home environment for your kids?
Sometimes.
When is it sometimes? We are all not perfect, but it does sound to me like he's making a negative input in your kids half the time.
He buys them ice cream and pizza in a while.
Does that undo the hurt in your kid's heart? Is everything normal once he buys them goodies? Learn to get in touch with the silence within yourself and know that in life it has a purpose. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross.
How are you doing, listeners? Today I'm a little nervous. In fact, I'm so excited. I've been talking to an anonymous caller daily for about a week now. She has an unusual situation going on in her life. I thank her for the courage to come live on the airwaves. I have agreed to come to a decision of what is best for her. Unlike my other shows, I will not be taking any calls or asking for any questions or opinions. I hope you all respect this and above all, understand the risk she is taking by agreeing to go live. I will let her give you her introductory chat. Over to you. You are live on air.
Hi. I have once been separated. In fact, it was for 2 years. Not for petty reasons. My husband is a jerk, sleeping with this girl I knew, an Anglican girl. They have a baby. You see, he believes he should always have his way. No sense of what a husband is. He is on some ego trip where he thinks it's all about power, sex, as and when he wants it, and having a slave to even clean off the crap marks in the toilet bowl after he is done. How can I forget? And a punching bag, let alone a verbal diarrhea dustbin. He believes I am there to stomach all of his frustrations so he can relieve his stress. We don't share the same opinion. Now, I sat for almost 2 years with pastors, counselors, and medical practitioners seeking help. I needed someone to help me deal with the mess I had gotten myself into. Yes, I chose this guy. I agreed to marry him. It wasn't an arranged marriage. So much advice came from all these guys I spoke with. 9 out of 10 of the counselors had never been abused, had no experience except stories they heard from other people. They were telling me how to manage a situation which they had never had any practical experience in. The advice was so great because they were outsiders. One priest actually said to me, "I know black men are good at sex, but you surely can't go through all this for sex." So there you are, a priest, single and never married, celibate with his assumption that I was sticking in that relationship for an orgasm. Some priest. People are strange. I found the church to be the worst place to get advice of this nature. The women would normally then share my situation at the leaders' meeting when at the house church. You just become the talk of the church, really. People would let you know they were praying for my situation. A good laugh is what I personally became. Coupled with church politics, you better not be in leadership because if you can't keep your man on the rein, you can't lead. I am bitter at church because they were blind spectators. What I think looking back is, first of all, stay clear of the church if it lacks the practical support and confidentiality. Secondly, find a counselor who fears God and has been through it. Thirdly, keep your issues airtight between you and your counselor. Fourthly, if you share with a friend, skip the graphics. And finally, find a professional outlet where you can vent out daily, if not hourly. That way you stay intact. I also want to say to the lady who thinks her man is not cheating and is not a full-time jerk because she knows how to manage him, you are so wrong. He is not a full-time jerk because that is what he is. You didn't make him that way. He is principled, and between God himself and his mom, he is good. It has very little to do with you. Trust me. You manage things, not people. He is good to you because he is just good, and God has been graceful to you. So don't look so smug or think so highly of yourself because your man bakes muffins on Saturday evenings and baths the kids. It has very little to do with you. It has a whole lot to do with the kind of heart he has. And if you are a lovely person yourself, that really helps. So love that man to bits. He is so rare to find. Life is a long road for him to change his mind and decide to go for the blonde with the big boobs. Life has no chapters. So I have agreed to go live with Jackie because she says what I have been through will help a lot of people. She also says she can help me clear my mind so I can arrive at a firm decision. So I will talk to you in the same way life shapes us. Spontaneous, predictable, and unpredictable.
Naked truth. Today our actors are Aurra and Matibiri. No matter how much fault you find with another, regardless of how much you blame, it will not change. Wayne Dyer.
I keep hearing what's not good for your kids. What about you?
I've decided to take the crap for the sake of the kids.
What exactly are your kids getting that you would tolerate this crap for?
A father in the house. Someone they call daddy.
But is he a father to your kids?
You're asking a very difficult question. Yes and no.
Would you say he is a father most of the time or some of the time?
He is like shifting shadows. He is nice when he has money. No, he shows off when he has money and they get to eat the crumbs of his egotistical spending because they happen to be in the same house. He has hardly ever bought necessary things for the kids. He buys a lot of ice cream. They would need tackies. He would buy expensive cereal for the same price as the pair of tackies. He can't spend on his kids in a meaningful way. In fact, he complains about anything beyond paying school fees for them, especially for my daughter. He has said before she should go to a cheaper school because she is a slow learner and he will not get a return on his investment.
Oh God, is this good for you?
I don't think I know what is good for me anymore.
Why continue this way then?
I think I'm afraid.
Of what?
Him withdrawing fees for the kids, my kids going through emotional trauma when we separate, my kids turning out bad because I didn't stick it through.
You said you believe in prayer.
I do.
What if you were to direct those prayers for your children instead? What if you were to direct them for you to have health, wealth, and all you need to look after the kids? You do know legally he can't change his financial commitment to the kids. Are you staying because of financial reasons?
Not really, but the school fees really scares me. Besides, he has chased the kids and me out of the house before.
Physically he can, but legally he can be in big trouble because of that. Why haven't you gone the legal route?
I don't want the fighting and the emotional drama. I want him to go quietly, fade out of my life until he stops being there altogether. It would make it easier for the kids than a sudden cut.
Oh, he will still be their dad.
Biologically, yes, but he can't put his kids on his shoulder, tuck them in bed, pick them up when they fall from their bikes.
Do you think it's easy for the kids, being mistreated, neglected, and seeing you being treated so bad? Does he tuck him in bed now? It sounds to me you're trying to really avoid the hurt, but it will hurt. You can't have a baby, then avoid the pain of labor. I am not sure if there's a way of minimizing the pain, but it will hurt. You can't have a baby, then avoid the pain of labor.
A woman I once knew told me that divorce was a pain worse than death. I think the best time to do this is when things are heated and ugly, so that it paints a graphic picture in the minds of my kids that we had to leave.
Have they not found enough ugly scenes in 10 years?
They have, but the legal process is not user-friendly. I want to break it nicely.
In the meantime, what are you becoming? This must be playing havoc with your dreams.
I'm doing okay. I recently got a promotion.
How do you balance the violence and keep a straight face at work and focus?
I do a pretty good job. I have learned to shut him out and focus on my work.
But surely you are not the same person.
I think I'm doing okay.
But I find it hard to believe that you're okay. Your situation must cause you a lot of stress.
Look, if he stays clear of my work, I am fine. It's when he interferes.
You don't mean to say he creates problems for you at work?
Yes. He's had someone come and shout at me at my workplace. Give them my address. It was humiliating. Or he calls me or emails me really obscene or humiliating emails. You know, anything that will pull my spirit down.
So how do you rise above that and stay focused?
God's grace entirely.
You must have fantastic workmates.
Not really. I'm not very popular at work. Auditors aren't. In fact, I dig up some pretty bad stuff and that puts me in a hot spot.
What do you mean?
People dig up my dirty laundry and throw it in my face to get me not to report on things. I have police files on abuse against my husband. When I unearthed some pretty nasty stuff at work, these were retrieved from police, and some of the senior guys really had me for breakfast. It is humbling when people start throwing below the belt shots, like only abused women do stuff like that.
Are these male or female colleagues? That's really nasty.
Both. Anyone whose path I crossed got the perfect ammunition to knock my ego down. In fact, I had entire departments against me. I got a vote of no confidence. People called me a pretender. I don't think I have ever quite forgiven any of those people who made sport of my suffering. They laughed. She gets beat up. Her husband has girlfriends. It was humiliating. It really was.
I am sad that someone can use another person's pain to cover his own problems. It seems to me your man just wants to pull you down. What do you guys have? Has he made you a better person?
He has made me tougher.
I guess for you to still be standing after all the stuff he's done is incredible. What do you have in the relationship?
Nothing now. Just the kids. I've called a lawyer.
And?
Never got around to initiate the process because I was afraid.
Of what?
Hurting my kids.
And yourself?
I am not an important part of the equation. So long as my kids are happy.
Are they happy?
Sometimes.
Have you asked them?
Yes. My daughter slips into angry depressions. My son gets totally out of control. They are extremely sad. In the middle or aftermath of their father's verbal diarrhea, I have nursed broken hearts. I am emotionally drained, and my kids have said, "Let's leave him, Mama."
I think you need to let some help. This guy has messed up your self-esteem and you go into a state of paralysis. Are you sure he's not a psychotic?
He has threatened to kill me before, pulled a knife out, strangled me, beat me.
Do you want this for the rest of your life? Do you still think this is good for your kids? I hear too many stories of women who end up dead because they stuck it for the kids. You are such a beautiful person. I know it from just talking to you. Why are you putting up with this? He could kill you. What will happen to your kids?